tell me what you think when she's in the bath and he's, like they're having a bit of a flirt, and then he's like, says something like, "I'll come and join you with Prince Albert," and she's like, "I want the both of you." What did you think that Johnny Depp meant by that?
What, by Prince Albert?
Yeah.
Is that not a piercing on the old chap? Is that what it's called?
on the old boy.
Yeah, the old boy.
Right. So it either, yes, you're correct, but it was him saying that he had a large penis. This is me trying to think of a euphemism, and I just went penis.
Penis.
Either it's him saying it is a large chipolata, or he had a Prince Albert piercing, which it seemed that threw me a bit, because I was like, what a strange thing to put in the movie.
Hello and welcome to Cruise Next with me, James Albarn, and my good friend, Elsa Grace. How are you, Elsa?
I'm great. I'm stupendous. How are you?
I'm very good.
So if you're new to the podcast, the premise is very simple. Every week we go through a movie together, and the movie is chosen based on a member of the crew from the filmography of the movie that we did the previous week. So last week, we were looking at The Breakup, directed by Peyton Reed, and we picked Jane Blank, who was the seamstress for that movie. And from Jane Blank, we got to this week's movie, Public Enemies.
What is it exactly you do for a living?
John Dillinger robs banks.
That's a serious thing to say to a girl you just met.
I like baseball, movies, good clothes, fast cars, and you. What else you need to know?
Today, I am declaring the United States of America's first war on crime.
Your task will be to get John Dillinger. Are you up to that task, Agent Purvis?
Absolutely, sir.
We are pursuing hardened killers. Play a game, Mr. President. It's called Spin the Dial. That's your money, mister?
Yes.
We're here for the bank's money, not yours. Put it away.
Well, the whole country thinks you're a damn hero.
Robbing banks is getting tougher.
We're having too good a time today. We ain't thinking about tomorrow.
Yeah, well, you ought to.
Johnny!
Put some clothes on, miss.
They're extraditing you.
Where to?
Indiana.
Why? I have absolutely nothing I want to do in Indiana.
How long does it take you to go through a bank?
The 2009 Michael Mann film starring Johnny Depp, Christian Bale, Jason Clarke, Stephen Graham, Marion Cotillard, Public Enemies. Elsa, why don't you tell the lovely listeners all about Public Enemies? By the way, I should mention before you do that, if you haven't seen this film, there will be spoilers in this podcast. So pause this, go watch Public Enemies, then come back, listen to us talk about it. Elsa, tell us a little bit about Public Enemies from 2009.
Public Enemies is based on the non-fiction book Public Enemies, America's Greatest Crime Wave and the Birth of the FBI, 1933 to 1934, by Brian Burrow. Brian actually commented himself that Michael Mann was a stickler for accuracy. This is pretty much all true. There are various things throughout the movie that aren't true, which we'll get into later. But essentially, it follows the sort of rise and fall of gangster lifestyle during the Great Depression. The film starts in 1933 and follows primarily Dillinger, John Dillinger, who's played by Johnny Depp, who, when we meet the character, he's been out of jail for 8 weeks. He was in for 9, and commits various different robberies. He was sent to jail twice, escaped twice. In the movie, he's fairly bloodthirsty, kills quite a few people, but in reality, he only ever killed one person. He was a crafty fellow of the gangster community, but, wasn't particularly bloody, cared a lot about his community, was very much the Robin Hood of gangsters during the Great Depression. There are various other gangsters throughout the movie, but they kind of sort of dot in and out of the movie. It primarily follows John Dillinger, and we get to see a little bit of his personal life with his partner, who's played by Marion Cotillard. Marion Cotillard, for the French listeners. And
Bonjour.
Christian Bale, bonjour. Christian Bale plays, who does he play?
Plays the FBI agent Melvin Purvis, Special Agent Purvis.
Christian Bale plays Special Agent Melvin Purvis, who was a real detective, but he was not heading up this investigation into John Dillinger. That is a bit of an artistic license there. The sort of the chase and the eventual capture of Dillinger was very much sort of brought about by J. Edgar Hoover, who I think we all know who that is.
And who is in the film as well. I don't think either of us had seen this film, had we, before watching it for this podcast. What were your sort of initial thoughts and takeaways from the film? This is an unusual one for us because we've literally watched it today as of recording this. It's very fresh. I literally finished watching it about an hour ago. So it's fresh in the mind. So what were your sort of initial thoughts after finishing?
I really enjoyed it. This is the movie that I've enjoyed the most out of the ones we've watched so far.
The Breakup.
It was a close call.
Crazy.
By a hair's breadth did I enjoy it more than The Breakup. I really did enjoy this one. I can get on board with sadness in movies better. I know we had this conversation in The Prestige. I can get on board with it more when I know that it's a true story. And I found this era in general for me, I find really interesting. The Great Depression, it started in America, but it very much was worldwide. And until maybe 1939, although it ended in America in 1933, 1934. But it was, 10 years previous, it was sort of the birth of like that culture of celebrity. So this is really when when like the Roaring Twenties happened, and then it's where the world gets so juicy and interesting. So I love movies set in this time, and I was very much looking out for I was enjoying it as a historical kind of movie. I think they did really well in that. I think it was very historically accurate, let's say. I love it. I love the costumes. I love the cars. I love the guns. I love the mannerisms and the little sayings. This was right up my street. I liked it a lot.
There was something about it that initially I found quite jarring, which I don't know if you want to get into now, because it's like sort of very heavily based in cinematography.
Let's go. And I think I know what you might say.
So this is Michael Mann's first film that he did purely on digital. Up until then, he'd been working only on film.
It was one of the first, wasn't it?
And it was one of the first films completely shot on digital. There's a very distinct digital edge to the image in this film. We talked a bit about this in the episode we did on The Prestige, and about how Christopher Nolan had shot it handheld. He obviously shot it on film because he always shoots on film, and it made it feel less of a period piece. And I think in the same way, this feels a lot more modern. It doesn't, you sort of forget almost the 30s aspect of it sometimes, because it feels like you're watching a documentary sometimes. Like even the placement of the cameras and stuff like that. Some of the sound isn't like traditionally as you would expect it. It feels a lot more documentary in that sort of sense, as if like not everyone's mic'd up all the time. And it's like they're trying to like capture it as it happens rather than watching like a coordinated choreographed film, which obviously it is, but it just feels much more like you're just seeing stuff as it happens. So when you see the first scene, that was kind of a little bit jarring to me at first.
The first scene being where John Dillinger is breaking into the Indiana State Penitentiary,
breaking out his crew,
and he's brought in as a prisoner. That is the gambit, but he's not really. His hands are not really tied, you know. And breaks them all out. It is a semi-successful mission. Unfortunately, they lose a couple men.
And there's no like music in that sequence until his crew member is like hang on to the car and then dies, and that's the first bit of sort of music you get. And then it cuts to Christian Bale chasing Channing Tatum.
Boy. Channing Tatum. Let us not let this pass us by. I was going to say cameo. It's not a cameo because Channing Tatum, this was back in 2009. So he'd done Step Up by then, I think, right? He'd done maybe
I think so,
two.
I imagine. Yeah.
He played Pretty Boy Floyd, right? That was the character's name.
Yeah.
What a fitting character for young Channing. So this is something, again, not totally historically accurate. We kind of see Christian Bale's character as being like, you know, they're cracking down hard on these gangsters, but actually like his character Pretty Boy Floyd didn't die until after John Dillinger. As with Nelson, Babyface Nelson didn't die till after John Dillinger.
Oh, right. Okay.
But I guess they were kind of used to maybe foreshadow what to come, and that you know, the FBI are cracking down on gangsters. Also, I think that was supposed to introduce us to Christian Bale's character as he's not a heartless man, you know? He's just doing his job. He's just an agent trying to put food on the table. He warned him. He warned Channing to stop running, and you know, and then he was kind of hopeful that he was just gonna, you know, it was like, you're under arrest, and the guy was like, well, you've killed me. You know, so
you can rot in hell, you son of a bitch. Yeah.
And, you know, he has that horror. You can see it in his eyes. He's not, you know, not happy about watching a man die. So I think, I really like that element of this movie, in that no one really is painted as a villain in this film. Everyone is very human.
Pretty Boy Floyd, you're under arrest. This is Charles Floyd. Who are you? Melvin Purvis, Bureau of Investigation. Where's your friend, Harry Campbell? I believe you've killed me.
The only one who is sort of almost sort of cartoonesque villain is Stephen Graham's character of Babyface Nelson. Like, he's a guy
and he was too. He was a psychopath. Okay. He worked for Al Capone. He really was. He's
the only one really. But what's interesting about it, like, you know, Dillinger is reluctant to sort of work with him when they've done the job with him, and he's just like, you know, Babyface Nelson has caused havoc, you know, and Dillinger himself gets shot basically as a result. He says to Jason Clarke's character, his name escapes me right now, Red. He says to Red, like, we've got to leave because this guy's going to get us killed if we like hang around with him. And for Red, that certainly is true. Yeah, what did you think? So I was watching this film and I was thinking about our conversation about The Prestige. Now, obviously, they're different because The Prestige is a work of fiction. This is a work of fiction based on a true story. But we had a conversation in that about how you sort of, you know, there aren't any sort of actual like moral characters in The Prestige.
Mm-hmm.
In this film, the characters all definitely have their sort of moral flaws at times, but what did you think on about that in terms of this film?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, like I just think that they were all painted to be a little bit more human. Apart from obviously, babyface Nelson. I enjoyed it. I mean, Dillinger is painted as a kind of modern day Robin Hood, as it were. He very much is robbing the state, robbing the banks that have let the working man down.
There's that bit in the first, in the first bank robbery, right?
Where the guy, gets his, he's ready to be robbed by John Dillinger, and he says, "Put your money away. I'm just here for the banks." Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, as if there aren't enough moments, him giving the kidnapped woman his coat, as if there weren't enough moments of signifying to the audience, he's just a good guy in bad circumstances.
My favorite bit about that bit was the where he tied them to the tree. Tied the bank manager and the woman to the tree, and the guy goes, "We'll freeze out here," and he's like, "You'll slip out of those ropes in 10 minutes. You'll be fine." Like, you really like Dillinger by the end, I think, and
you hate it. I hate to like him, but I do. Like the whole thing with Marion Cotillard when they're in that coat check area, and he's like, "So you're never gonna leave me? I'm never gonna leave you." And she's like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, you better stand by that no, Marion. You don't turn around and say yes." And obviously she did. And we're just women. I get it. Like, who are we under that smolder of John Dillinger? Who are we to say no?
There's that great line though, like where she's like, "I don't know anything about you." And so he goes, he tells her about his background, and then he's something like, "I like baseball, the movies,
fast cars,
good clothes, and you." And it's like, "Oh yes, okay, we're off." Like,
yeah, she was like, "I quit my job right now. Here I come, John." Yeah, it was good. It was a nice little moment. Yeah, they really were, supposedly they really were very much in love. The thing that was slightly, fabricated was that she was taken into custody and, beaten and questioned in that way. That didn't happen. Well, I mean, the book that the movie is based on, it didn't happen in the book. I don't know if it happened in real life. Wouldn't put it past the brutes.
And they were using those kind of
particularly gruesome scene.
They were using those kind of interrogation tactics around that time, like the FBI.
Yes, but it was unusual that they would do that to women.
Yes, there is that. I think there is that also that scene where, I think it's one of Dillinger's associates has been shot behind the eye or something. And his brain is swelling, and they don't let the doctor treat him to try and get the information out of him. And that's a tough scene.
Yeah, it was a tough time. It was a tough time in America and everywhere. It was the economic downfall of the industrialized world. People were very desperate. And it was the president at the time was Herbert Hoover, and he was a Republican, and he was very much blamed for the state of the Great Depression. So state-run operations like the FBI were under huge amounts of pressure to perform. So there was a lot of dirty cops. There was a lot of that kind of behavior. But one of the reasons why Dillinger was so successful in what he did was because of the interstate laws, the federal interstate laws, meaning that if you committed a crime in one state, you couldn't be charged for that crime if you were not in that state. So if you escaped to another one, they couldn't get you. And that was essentially what he did. And we see that scene with, J. Edgar Hoover when he's asking for this to be taken control of, and to have this be a countrywide law, and they turned him down. That did happen. It took a long time for that law to come into place. And yeah, a lot of gangsters like him really really milked that. It was quite clever, really. That's why, like, when they say things like, that you're going back to Indiana, and he's like, there's no reason I would want to go back there, because he could be tried for his escape and all of the crimes once he's there. It was a super desperate time.
You act like a confident man, Mr. Purvis. You got a few qualities. Probably pretty good from a distance, especially when you got the fella outnumbered. But up close, toe to toe, when somebody's about to die right here, right now, I'm used to that. How about you?
Goodbye, Mr. Dillinger.
I'll see you down the road.
No, you will not. The only way that you will leave a jail cell is when we take you out to execute you.
Well, we'll see about that. You gotta get yourself another line of work, Melvin. Hey, I was just kidding. I believe I'm gonna let you boys keep me here a while.
And we'd like that, Johnny, but don't get too comfortable. They're moving you.
Where to?
Indiana.
Why? I have absolutely nothing I want to do in Indiana.
What did we think of Christian Bale's Melvin Purvis? Because I don't think, and I read a review online on rogerebert.com, and they were talking about how really Christian Bale, his character's kind of nothingy, and to be fair to Christian Bale, he doesn't really have much to do in this film. He is very much like an important character, but he doesn't really have any moments to shine in this film, I don't think.
I think, though, that is because I agree with you. I would say that this is like the film with the most nothingness that I've ever had from Christian Bale.
Yeah.
And actually, when I mentioned, so having not seen the film, a friend of mine, when I mentioned that we were doing this film this week, said, and I was like, well, Johnny Depp's the gangster and Christian Bale is the cop. And they're like, oh, he's going to be a dirty cop, isn't he? He's going to be a corrupted cop. And like, that is what you would think. But no, it was a fairly vanilla character, not performance. I think he, as usual,
he did what he could with what he was given. Yeah.
But I think that's because more of the emphasis was on the gangsters of the movie. They would, they're the A-list celebrities of their time, as it were. And he was, as a man, he was supposed to kind of fly under the radar, and that's sort of what he did in the movie. I think it's difficult when the emphasis is on the gangster in a gangster movie, it's difficult to give a lot of character to the police that are chasing them, unless there's that scene where the police just break down, then they're like, I see myself in him, or like, God damn it, will I never catch him? Like that, like, unless there's those moments, you don't get a lot of them. So
yeah.
I think, but they did their best. Like the whole, he, again, like he was being portrayed as being like a gentleman who, like, if he could avoid, hurting people, he would. Like, you could see that he was like sickened every time one of his men was injured, and he called J.E. He was like, call me J.E. He called J.E. and was like, unless you give us more power here, or more permission over interstate lines, blah, 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 like, you're sending my men to slaughter. He even looks horrified when he killed those poor civilians in the car, which that did happen. 3 of them died, unfortunately.
He looks kind of horrified when Dillinger dies at the end.
I think he was really hoping to take him into arrest, is why. Also, that scene, the post-investigation scene with Marion Cotillard, and she's like, I can't stand up. And he, fireman carries her out. Yeah. That was touching. He was, he's set up to be a good guy.
Yeah, I think what was surprising for me is that we didn't get more of him. And I get what you're saying about it being...
I wanted more of him.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about the nature of the film, you're going to focus on Dillinger. But I think Michael Mann probably most famous for directing Heat. And there's that very famous scene where Al Pacino, who is the police lieutenant who is chasing down Robert De Niro, they have that conversation with each other. There's that scene where they, and it's like in The Dark Knight where Christian Bale, Batman, has that interrogation scene with the Joker where they talk to each other about, they sort of get into each other's minds. And I was waiting for that scene, like regardless of whether it happened in real life, right? I was waiting for that scene where Dillinger and Purvis have this moment where they talk to each other and they're trying to get into each other's head. And the only point that really happens is the first is like
in the cell.
And it's not really, it's like too early in the film for it to be one of those big climactic conversation moments,
But I thought that was a nice, like, I think that gave good insight into both of their characters. Like Christian Bale was being very sort of quiet and collected and observing him. And Johnny Depp was, being very cocky and glib, bloody glib, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was bloody glib.
Mel Gibson.
And maybe I don't even want it to have been a two-hander because I think, really that Dillinger is the interesting character out of the two. It's sort of less interesting especially like the way they caught him wasn't exactly like especially interesting anyway, you know what I mean? It was kind of like,
but that was very accurate. It was exactly that movie, it was that day, it was that theater, it was that street. Like that's exactly what happened. And it was true that the woman Anna was she was worried about being deported, so she sort of gave him up, which was, shit. They were friends. But she was worried. She was being threatened about deportation. Also, I imagine that there was a $10,000 bounty on his head, which now is just over $200,000. It's a hell of a lot of money, especially during the Great Depression. So, I would never do it. I'm just letting you know now, James, if ever you're on the run, I will not take the bait.
Really? That's good to know.
I mean,
I thought your moral compass would...
300,000 minimum is all I'm saying.
Fine.
But like, yeah, so good luck raising that money, feds. But yeah, I get what happened. It was tragic. I think it was very sad, especially because like he wasn't a Nelson babyface, he was as I said, he was like a bit of a Robin Hood. But he would, had they not killed him and had he gone to trial, he would have had the electric chair back then. So it was never going to end well for John.
What's sort of implied in the film, which we obviously don't know for sure in real life, because obviously, it's all in his head, and so we'll never know. But there's at least the character in the film, there's a sense that he's accepted his fate, at the movie, because the movie is very, and it's interesting that you say that movie was the movie that he actually saw.
Clark Gable, yeah.
Because it's...
Goodbye, Black.
It's basically like him, And he even looks like him. He even looks like Clark Gable in that film. And she and Shirley Temple sort of look, not Shirley Temple, sorry. That was the other film they were going to see. But the lead actress, I don't know her name, in the Clark Gable film looks a bit like Marion Cotillard's character. And it cuts between Clark Gable saying goodbye to his wife. I'm assuming wife.
We haven't seen that movie.
I don't know. We haven't seen the film.
We'll see in the credits this week, maybe.
I was going to say his girl in a 1930 sense, but I thought that sounded terribly.
Throw up a bit in my mouth.
Yeah.
His doll.
His doll. But you cut between him saying goodbye and Johnny Depp's face watching this film, and it feels like he's sort of accepting it. You know, it feels like he's accepted what his fate is. He accepted that maybe he won't see Billie again. You know?
I
That's
almost
how I
took that
read
though
that
as
scene.
him. I took that as him deciding not to do. Oh, we have such different insights. I took it as him deciding. I think he was hanging up his hat. I think he was thinking, yeah, she's right in that letter. You know, she's right. I'm going to walk away. I'm going to see her soon. I'm not going to do this last hit on the train. I'm going to.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
because he was getting a bit teary and he was looking, he kind of smiled a bit. And you could tell he was thinking of Billie. So in my head, I was like, yeah, he's going to, which like, I thought they were like setting up to make his death scene so much sadder. Bye-bye Blackwood, but Blackwood. But yeah, that's what I thought. Interesting.
Yeah, I took it as him sort of it's like there's the scene earlier in the film where Red says to Dillinger, he's like, you know when your time's up, and I know my time's up. And Dillinger goes, don't talk like that, don't be stupid. And then that night he gets killed, right? That to me is almost foreshadowing then John Dillinger in the theater watching the film and having the same sort of realization. That's how I took it. So it's interesting that you took it a different way. And that's the beauty of film.
I wonder if that just pertains to gangsters or if I too will know when my time is up. Maybe I'll be watching Finding Nemo and I'll
breakup. You'll be watching the breakup.
I'll just have the feeling for the second time.
Yeah.
I'll try and see if maybe there was something I missed the first time. This is not an episode to shit on Peyton Reed again, James. This is a different film now.
They say you're the man who shot him.
That's right. One of them.
So why are you coming here to see me? To see the damage you've done?
No. I came here because he asked me to. When he went down, he said something. I put my ear next to his mouth. And what I think he said was this. He said, tell Billie for me. Bye-bye, Blackbird.
Oh, something that I've just spotted in my notes and I have to bring up because I have to. And I think maybe you'll have a different idea. Tell me what you think when Marion, when she's in the bath. Oh, nearly. Well, we're nearly there. We'll do a mashup of both of us and maybe we'll be accurate. She's in the bath and he's, like they're having a bit of a flirt. And then he's like, so something like, I'll come and join you with Prince Albert. And she's like, I want the both of you. I want the both of you in the bath now. Yeah. God, she's not that French, is she? I'm sorry, Marion.
And she's also not French in the film. Is she? I couldn't tell.
She is. She says on her father's side. And her mother is a
Native American. Yeah.
So what did you think that Johnny Depp meant by that?
What, by Prince Albert?
Yeah.
Is that not a piercing on the old chap? Is that what it's called?
on the old boy.
Yeah, on the old boy.
Right. So it either, yes, you're correct, but was him saying that he had a large penis. This is me trying to think of a euphemism and I just went penis.
Penis.
Either is him saying It is a large chipolata, or he had a Prince Albert piercing, which it seemed that threw me a bit because I was like, what a strange thing to put in the movie. And also it could have been possible, because the reason why that came about was because actually it was rumored, this might be hearsay, but it was rumored that Prince Albert had a rather large willy and had to pierce it to connect it to his trousers when very tight breeches were a thing, to like hook it on to the inside of his trousers so that it would lay flat and it wouldn't look like a big trouser snake down by his knee. I swear to God, this is a thing. So like, that's like the rumor of the Prince Albert piercing and why it's called a Prince Albert. So I thought it was really weird that they put that line in the movie for John Dillinger.
Do you want to know the historical fact?
Does he have John Dillinger? Does he have one?
So while you were talking about Prince Albert, I looked up John Dillinger, Prince Albert, and I found an article. Now, this could be bollocks, because this is an article from... Oh, actually, no, this probably isn't bollocks, right? Because it's from the Oxford University Press website. And it's entitled... I'll put a link in the description of this podcast if you want to check it out. It's called... Is It True What They Said About John Dillinger? It's from 2009. It's written by Elliot J. Gorn. And...
Get to the good stuff, James. We don't care about that.
The first sentence of this is as follows. I'm reasonably sure that most American boys who reached adolescence in the 1960s knew about Dillinger's dick. It was enormous, preserved in formaldehyde at the Smithsonian Institution.
So why...
Friends of mine who grew up on the East Coast told me years later that on high school trips to Washington, the boys would spread out and look for it. Some even claimed that they saw it. A less well-known version of the story insisted that no, it wasn't in the Smithsonian, but at FBI headquarters, that for years it rested in a jar on J. Edgar Hoover's desk.
Oh, come on.
Others said it was actually nearby at the Army Medical Museum. Anyway, boys identified with the dead gunman and his parts. Everyone knew what you meant when you referred to my Dillinger. You're referring to your penis. I'm going to look to see.
I think that's total poppycock. There is no way that his twig and berries, or just twig, would have been in formaldehyde on J. Edgar Hoover's desk. What madman or psychopath, which I don't think J. Edgar was, would keep a penis on their desk? Why would you want that? Who would take you seriously coming into the... Oh, sorry, I was just wondering if, could I get Thursday... Oh, that's a giant wang on your desk. Could I get Thursday off anyway? Like, who would do that? What a bizarre rumor.
So...
But he had a large one, so that was the thought. Either it was pierced or it was a prize hog.
So here we go. So this is actually quite an interesting story. So the Smithsonian has a formal letter they send out routinely denying any knowledge of Dillinger's missing member. Even before the Smithsonian legend, Dillinger's manhood was part of oral tradition. Oral. Penis. Back in Indiana, the outlaw's home state, some said that he was so large that he was not a great lover. He would lose consciousness when aroused because so much blood drained towards his groin.
Yeah, I believe it, 100%.
The story of Dillinger's legendary proportions originated with a morgue photo that circulated just after he died. There he is on a gurney. Officials from the Cook County Coroner's Office gathered round, and the sheet covering him rising in a conspicuous tent at least a foot above his body, roughly around his loins. Though truth be told, it looks more like where his navel should be. Probably his arm, rigid in rigor mortis, was under the sheet. No matter, it looked like he died with an enormous hard-on. This guy, this article. The damage was done. Hang on. In a literal sense, the story was not true. So in a literal sense, the story is almost certainly not true. Dillinger's autopsy reported nothing unusual about the man. Government workers just looked perplexed when asked about the legendary object. No one has ever produced substantial proof that the famed member exists. So there you go. So apparently,
I think that he probably had a large willy.
So I think that answers, though, at least why that weird line is in the film, because it's like a little fun little reference to this rumor that apparently this sort of folkloric tale about John Dillinger's penis that seems to have spread across America. So there you go.
He did definitely operate with that BDE, big dick energy, for listeners who aren't familiar.
It took me a while to work out, to be fair.
Yeah, he did, for sure. The certainty of that man escaping from jail and, driving out the sheriff's car oh so calmly, all of that that's BDE all over it, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it is, yeah. Christian Bale in this film doesn't exert much BDE, really.
No. Got a little squeaker. Sorry, Christian. I'm sure it's great.
This has really descended this episode.
The penis talk was going to have to happen in one of these.
Hit the road, sport. Keep the tip. I ain't getting other people's hats and coats no more neither.
Why'd you do that?
Because you're with me now.
I don't know anything about you.
I was raised on a farm in Mooresville, Indiana. My mama died when I was 3. My daddy beat the hell out of me because he didn't know no better way to raise me. I like baseball, movies, good clothes, fast cars, whiskey, and you. What else you need to know?
So, Elsa, any closing thoughts about Public Enemies?
No, I really liked it, actually. And I think that even though, we said there weren't really any light moments in the movie.
It's not heavy. I wouldn't say it's heavy, though.
Yeah, I didn't find it was heavy. I think there was enough humanity and sort of general everyday frivolity in the characters of Dillinger that actually it was quite easy to watch. There were a few scenes that were really difficult to watch. Marion Cotillard's interrogation is one of them. That was horrific. She's an incredible actor. But yeah, I found it really easy to watch. I thought it was very interesting. I was very invested in the characters and in the storyline. The only bit that I thought this is going on a bit was where they catch him in the cabin motel and they're chased into the woods. That one, for me, that lagged a little bit, which is a shame because that was a real event and it was a disaster for the FBI. And I felt, I don't know, maybe I don't know what would have made that a little bit more exciting. Maybe it was just a bit long, the sequence.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's a film with charisma. It's a film with the charisma of its lead. And for me, personally, it's just it's a reminder that Johnny Depp is actually a really good actor. And I feel like Johnny Depp, we just think of him now as playing these sort of either weird Tim Burton characters or Jack Sparrow. And you forget how good Johnny Depp is. And it's interesting.
God, I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you don't. But I personally, I forget Johnny Depp is how good Johnny Depp is. And it's always a pleasure to actually see him play a real person. Not just in the sense of obviously John Dillinger is a real person, but so many of his characters these days are so sort of outlandish and fantastical that it's nice to see him play someone that is like feels real. And he has so much charisma in this film that really just like pushes it along. And that's why I say it's a film with charisma, not just because of Johnny Depp, but like everything down to the music, the choices of the songs in it that are mostly Otis Taylor songs, which is always nice. And also it's like it's an incredible cast. You know, like the cast list is incredible. And you know, I was talking about the cinematography earlier, that sort of feeling of it being like a documentary. It really adds pace to the film. Like you know, usually when you watch sort of 30s gangster movies, they don't have this sort of almost frenetic pace to the action, or they feel much more theatrical in a sense. It feels like a lot more removed, because they're usually
this felt more like a fly on the wall, didn't it?
Yeah, they're usually filmed with like locked off cameras, just like, you know, very cinematic. But this felt like we were right there with him. And there's so many moments where like you're in a car with Dillinger and you can tell the camera guy is just like sitting next to him in the car while they're driving, rather than some sort of elaborate rig.
They did a lot of very tight handheld shots in moments of tension. At the cabin, that was another one where Christian Bale Purvis like falls to his knees seeing the civilians that he shot, and that there's, you know, a bit of wobbly camera happening there. And I think it was a really nice touch. I mean, someone actually mentioned to me today, a friend of mine said, and I didn't notice this, but being one of the first digital movies to be shot, apparently, you know, they were used to film and things that film pick up. So apparently in this film, you can see like chalk marks and things on the costumes where the costumes have been taken in, and that kind of thing. I didn't see any of that personally. But yeah, it's just, I mean, it was the start of a new age of film, really, wasn't it?
Hey, at this point, if you've seen a Michael Mann film, like, it's a Michael Mann film, you know, like, he's one of the greats, and like, you know, he knows how to do action, he knows how to do character, and all of that comes through in this film, and was a real treat to watch.
And you know what I love about Michael Mann films is that there is a truth to the violence in his movies, and I don't like violence and action for violence and action's sake, and it's not garish.
There's
it
a
never
weight.
Is with him. Yeah,
there's a weight
it's
to
really,
you know,
it's good.
It comes through in the sound, you know, of the guns, etc. You know, there's a weight to the gun. You know, it's loud. You know, you forget how loud guns are, and I think you can forget that when you watch action films, because, you know, there's not usually this like piercing, you know, because there's a lot of quiet moments in this film where characters are talking quite quietly with one another, and then you get to the action and the guns are loud. It's like kind of jarring, but in like a way a gun would actually be jarring to the ear, you know what I mean?
But they're unflinching, aren't they? But you can see, like, from the civilians and stuff that are always around them in those scenes, you can see just how loud and terrifying it was, but not for the gangsters.
So Elsa, we've got to rate this film, because apparently that's something we do because you insist on it. I'm never going to pretend to be happy about it, but
I'm a stickler for the ratings.
What would you rate Public Enemies out of 5 Prince Alberts?
What a joy. I would rate it a solid 4.25 Prince Alberts.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I'd give it 4 out of 5 Prince Alberts. I think it was a good film. Well worth a watch. If you haven't seen it, then I'm surprised you've got this far on this podcast and we've ruined everything for you. But go and watch it. It's a good film. It's well worth your time. Now it is the time in our show to pick our next film. I have 3 crew members from the crew of Public Enemies, and Elsa is going to pick one of these people and thus pick our next film. So, Elsa, your choices this week are the script supervisor, Alicia Arcadio. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The music coordinator, Shinosuke Miyazawa. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, although I think that was not a bad job. Or the additional hairdresser, Denise Baker.
I try not to overthink it, but I can't. I simply can't. I think if we go with the script supervisor or the hairdresser, Denise Baker, I think we'll probably end up with another period-y piece.
That is not necessarily the case.
Oh, okay.
I have picked 3 films that I think are fairly different.
Starkly different. Okay.
I want there to be a variety. So.
Okay, let's go with the music coordinator, Shinosuke Miyazawa.
Okay, interesting. So, in that case, we are watching the 2016
new
sci-fi drama romance, according to IMDb, Passengers, starring Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. Have we seen this film? I haven't.
I have. I'm not going to say anything then, because I have.
Okay. So that is what we will be watching next time.
I've already got stuff to say.
So until next time, thank you very much for joining us. If you like the podcast, please do subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with the people on the street. And you can find links in the description to all sorts of wonderful things. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you and goodbye.
That was Victoria, Albert's wife. You didn't get that?
No.
Thank you and goodbye.